So I wanted to talk about the Earth's magnetic field. We're all well aware of the importance. Even when we do space travel, we only look for livable planets based on the magnetic field. That is how detriment it is to our health. And over the past decade, they have noticed the weakening of the Earth's magnetic field, specifically in certain areas of the planet. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the weakening of the Earth's magnetic field, and then the polarity of the magnetic field in the direction and how important it is in achieving assaults with your PMF unit. And then I'm going to review how I use the PMF to mitigate diabetes, and also how I use it to mitigate age-related macular degeneration. And this all relates to the weakening of the Earth's magnetic field. The magnetic field is thought to be largely generated by an ocean of superheated, swirling liquid iron that makes up Earth's outer core. And other sources, such as the magnetism, comes from the minerals of the Earth, the mantle, the crust, the iosphere, magnetosphere, and the oceans also play a role. And in the area stretching from Africa to South America, the Earth's magnetic field has gradually been weakening. And the magnetic field is vital to life on our planet. And about over 200 years, the magnetic field has lost about 9 to 10% of its strength. The anomaly, the largest area that is weakening is in the South Atlantic basin, and they believe that this also has direct relation to the different minerals that are being taken out of the ground. Just like our bodies respond to the pulsed magnetic field from the PMF unit, we need to have the right ions within inside our body. And if we take the ions out of Mother Earth, how does that affect the generation of the Earth's magnetic field? The Earth's magnetic field in this area has weakened so much that there's actually a warning to flights that you may experience disruption of your mechanical maneuvering systems due to the Earth's magnetic field in this area really weakening. So what this means is that we all know that our heart rate variability connects to the Schumann resonance, which is a range around 7.83 to about 11 hertz. We all know that our body connects with this. All our heart, our alpha waves, our brain waves are all related to the magnetic field that is being generated by the Earth. They also believe that the polarity of the Earth is going to shift. And that is also why naturally the Earth is weakening in order to facilitate the shifting of the magnetic poles. And the largest weakening and changing of the direction is experienced in the North Pole. The polarity is changing the most. Not only humans, but birds utilize the magnetic field of the Earth in order to read. They've done so many studies that show that the light frequency, as well as gravity, as well as the Earth's magnetic field, all play a role in how the birds read the signaling cues from the environment. For instance, you can take a bird and you can put it somewhere and it will be able to turn on its magnetic compass and get right back on its migration track, no matter where you put the bird. They also believe that humans have these senses, but they're more dormant in humans because we have lost our way in a sense. Some people still have that natural GPS within inside of them, but it is weakening in people. And like they always say, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So from the birds, we know the Earth's magnetic field gives communication, gives signaling, tells it what season it is, gives it cues to go to food, to safe harbors when hurricanes are coming. So the different parts of the Earth have a distinct geomagnetic signature according to the location. And these are all honing cues that the birds can utilize in order to find their way home. And if you ever wondered why rare birds are rare, it's because their magnetic migration routes do not go into those areas. So when you see these birds in those areas, it's rare because they're not supposed to be there. So that is why rare birds seen by bird watchers and certain parts of the planet are rare, because they're off their migration course. We also know crayfish, as well as other fish, dolphins, whales, all use the Earth's magnetic field. Their hair cells are what stimulate the weak periodic water fluctuations around the frequencies of 5 to 10 hertz. And these periodic stimulations alone are far weaker and are able to induce firing events on their own. They're able to keep them from predators. They can feel the subtle vibrations in the environment. They say that horses are the animal which is able to sense the magnetic field the most, particularly because they're a prey. Prey have a more honed sense to the magnetic field, because they need to be able to sense the subtle fluctuations, the vibrations, in order to get a head start on the predator. Another question is, we're electrifying the planet. How is that going to impact the magnetic field of the planet? We know that from using gas, how that polluted the planet. Are we just heading into the same direction, just with a different element? Because there are far-reaching consequences to disrupting the Earth's magnetic field. Even Tesla had noted that without the magnetic field, the physicality of the planet would become dense. So how can PMF help? What we know about PMF, and what I've been reading in the research in utilizing it on my own personal journey with PMF, is that the direction of the magnetic field ley lines, the polarity, signals to different organ systems depending on how the pads are positioned. Now, what I mean by this is when you are laying on a whole body mat with your back on the mat, the magnetic field is going from back to front. When you're laying face down, or you put the mat on top of you, the magnetic field is going from the front of your body to the back. General rule of thumb to balance all of this research out is that if you're looking for activation, if you're looking for energy, you should have the magnetic field going from front to back, because that would also simulate moving forward in the Earth's magnetic field. And those cues will signal to your body movement, energy, going forward, more sympathetic dominant activities. When you are laying on a whole body mat, the direction of the field is going from back to front. Those are signaling cues to your body: rest, digest. It's great for meditation. It's great for prayer. So depending on how you position those magnetic coils and how the PMF goes through the body, whether it's from front to back, whether it's from back to front, or whether it's on the sides, they found that treating the body with the magnetic field on the side is better for inducing circulation. They've also found that some organ systems work better because you're going to optimize the induction ability of the magnetic field by going from front to back. And they found that if you're utilizing anything with the cardiovascular system, front to back is beneficial. Also, sides. Going in on the sides. If you're working on the kidneys, for instance, you would want to hold the pads on the sides, because it will produce far more induction within the tissues than laying on the mat will. So how can PMF help? We need to train our bodies and keep our bodies honed in order to pick up the subtle senses, the cues from Mother Earth, from the environment that is sending us about how we are going to be changing within our environment, the cues. And like I had said before, if you don't train the body in a weakening magnetic field environment, you're going to become more and more and more disconnected. You're going to have more agitation, more stress. You'll basically lose your magnetic compass. So when you're looking to benefit from PMF, think about what organ system am I looking to target, and the positioning of the magnetic field, how it is entering the body, whether it's front to back or back to front or on the sides, has relative importance in optimizing induction in those specific tissues. To give you some examples, I had done the 23andMe long ago, and two of the areas of concern for health was age-related macular degeneration. I have both variants, and also a family history. So this was hugely important to me to really understand how age-related processes work, because it's all over time, how I can mitigate that, how I can slow it down, and hopefully prevent age-related issues such as macular degeneration from even happening. I'm 48 years old. I still do not wear glasses. I can still have clear vision. And I 100% contribute this to PMF, because before PMF, I was already experiencing vision loss, and that was 10 years ago. So what I do in order to benefit my eyes is at least once a day, sometimes twice a day, from all the research that I have done, is if you want to treat the eyes, it's best to point the direction of the magnetic field through the ears. So when I treat my eyes, in order to keep the optic nerve membrane potentials, the voltage up, because the eyes are the most energetic point on the body. The Bible says the eyes are the light of the soul. So a little caveat, I would think twice about putting a metaverse virtual reality mask on, considering metaverse is going right to your soul. And can we trust those individuals with that kind of connection to our human bodies? Back to the age-related macular degeneration. So having taken a look at this and spending basically years looking at PMF research, and seeing how advanced they are using energies, they can even mitigate and reverse alcohol-related fetus neuralities by using blue light stimulation through the mother's eyes, and the fetus will respond to it. So they're doing so much research now into using energy in order to stimulate and regenerate the body. And my complete focus now when it comes to PMF is all mitigating age-related, I guess you could say, chronic issues that come with age. And it's just like a house. If you buy a house and it's 40 years old, you're gonna have to redo the electrical wiring. And that's the same with your bodies. After 40 some years of stress and bruises and bumps and injuries and whatnot, you need to regenerate. You need to do renovations on that body. It needs to regenerate. And one of the best ways is utilizing PMF. We all know from looking at salamanders, when they regenerate limbs, there's a huge electrical current that happens that sends the information in order to regenerate a whole entire limb. The human body regenerates things, as we all know, the liver. You can give half of your liver away and it will regenerate. Our skin regenerates, our bones regenerate. There are so many things on our body that regenerate. And if we tap into these, we can mitigate age-related health implications and expand the span of health far into our retirement years. So, like I had said, 10 years ago, I started to investigate this because I had already noticed vision loss, particularly at night when I was driving. The signs would be blurry. 10 years of PMF, I still don't wear glasses and I do not have that blurry vision loss. I've talked to at least 3 people in the last 2 months who have gotten eye exams and their eyesight has improved. So this is one area where I'm starting to investigate and also starting to put into my education on insurance reimbursement, because somebody should be reimbursing people for this if you are getting real world results that can be evaluated by a eye doctor, by a medical profession who is helping you with your diabetes. So for instance, and that is my second area. The reason why, in my opinion, age-related macular degeneration is because the recycling of the cellular debris in your eye, which is required for maintaining good vision, diminishes as you get older. So when you see something, these red spots, meaning that you have spent these cells, they have the cones and the rods have already been utilized by your eyes, and they need to be recycled, and you need to regenerate new ones. When that process, the recycling of the cells, diminishes, that is what can usher in blurry vision or vision loss or problems with your vision. So using PMF and targeting the direction of the magnetic field in through your ears, and FYI, you should definitely use sensitive or 10 and only even go up to 25 if you've been utilizing it for several years. But consistency is the key. You don't need a strong magnetic field because you have the PMF unit in your house and you can use it whenever you want to. So slow and steady will win this race. So don't do it on a high intensity, just do it consistently. So I even started on sensitive, and I've only even moved up to about 10. So I fluctuate between 10 and sensitive when I'm using the Omnipad on the ear, specifically targeting the eyes, the optic nerve, and then I put it on the other side. So I generally even sometimes only do it 6 minutes, 4 to 6 minutes at sensitive to 10 on each side, due to the fact that I am doing it on both sides. So I figure if I do a 12-minute total, 6 on one, 6 on the other, in order to use symmetry, balance it out. So for most organs and tissues, the magnetic field orientation, which is normal to the torso, is front to back. And this gives the maximum qualities for PMF treatments. In the brain, the spinal fluid, blood, heart, bladder, eyes, spinal cord, the highest quantities are induced by orientation of the magnetic field side to side. The second area, which I had talked about, was type 2 diabetes. Again, age-related with me. Long family history of diabetes, and I've had several close family members pass away to diabetic complications that they did not reverse and kept on developing and eventually into cancer, pancreatic cancer. So when I saw this, I knew it was definitely an emergency. Particularly, it said, from my genetics, I have a 20% chance between 48 and 80. I'm 48 now. So again, there was no more waiting to tackle this. And my first route is always put energy into the system. So looking at diabetes, the first thing was energetic dysfunction within the body. And that can be defined by metabolism. A high BMI. If your BMI for a male is over 25%, you are in a high risk group. And I was talking to my friends in the Midwest, and they're farmers. And so I was explaining it to them. You have that Ford F-250 Super Duty. What would happen in your truck had lasted you 40 years? What would happen when you first got it if you kept overpiling in that payload way beyond its capacity? Do you think that Ford F-150 Super Duty would have lasted 40 years if you abused the energy, the metabolic, the payload of that truck? And that is exactly what it's like for your body when you are carrying extra weight. You have overloaded your pickup truck, and your body is in a constant state of stress and inflammation dealing with that environment. So, as Terry can let you know, I, over the last 2 years, have lost weight. And this was the reason why. At 48, I would have developed diabetes if I did not do what I did. This was genetics. Now, genetics don't dictate what will happen, but by losing that weight and utilizing PMF, because PMF, after every time I'd go for a walk or I would stretch or do yoga or Pilates or lift weights, the PMF would help the body regenerate, would relax the muscles, would take the lactic acid out of it so I could keep going and I could train, and it made the process enjoyable. And at 48, I wasn't stiff. I wasn't getting injuries because of the things that I was doing with PMF and staying hydrated and exercising. But just by dropping my weight to 170, let's turn the slide, I reduced that 20% chance to less than 1%. That is how significant excess weight is on the body. And PMF will mitigate that, but you have to lose the weight if you really want to return to health. And everybody's a little bit different, because my focus was preventing age-related type 2 diabetes onset. And just by exercising, doing PMF, doing stretching, which is huge. And when I say exercising, it involves 25-pound weights, it involves stretching on a mat, and it involves walking 4 hours a day. So I'm not talking about going crazy. I'm just talking about doing some type of movement that builds lean muscle. So keep this in mind. Just by doing that one simple thing, I reduced my genetic risk from 20% to less than 1%. And that was with PMF. And there's so much research, clinical research, into how PMF can help people prevent diabetes, as well as mitigate and control and manage those who have diabetes. You can even reverse it in some instances. So diabetic neuropathy, we know PMF stimulates the misfiring of the nerves, and it brings the circulation and the energy into the tissues so they do not die. They need the oxygen. So those are the areas on which I had utilized PMF in order to help mitigate age-related. And as we go, I'm going to report on all the other areas that I have looked into of what is the research showing? Where do you apply the magnetic field? How do I combine now blue light therapy with the Omnipad in order to achieve even more results in mitigating it? Because as we all know, it ain't going to get easier from going 48 and beyond. So what I need to do now is create the body that can take me into my retirement, my over 50 years, in order to help mitigate some of these illnesses that are brought on by aging. We can see just from our current environment with the pandemic that people who have chronic disease issues are also ones most susceptible to hospitalization and severe disease. So all of these things come together to form a whole mesh. And as we go, I'm developing these protocols that are all based on real world evidence, double-blind, peer-reviewed studies, and I'm submitting them to the insurance company for reimbursement and evaluation. They're not going to buy you a whole PMF unit, so get that out of your mind, but they may give you several $100s back. They may reimburse you for another treatment that you may have decided you didn't want to go with, and you want to do this. You need to get your doctor in the game. Your doctor has to play an active role because they will have to write the prescriptions for this, but it is here. There's so much research now. PMF is an active part, and it's here to stay. PMF is replacing pharmaceuticals for space travel. Pharmaceuticals disintegrate in space. You can't take a whole compounding pharmacy with you in space, but you can take a magnetic coil and you can take a frequency generator that can generate the same frequencies that the pharmaceuticals would produce in the brain. And by replicating those frequency patterns in the brain, you are replicating the benefits of those pharmaceuticals. And this was all shown because of space travel and the space station, and the fact that pharmaceuticals aren't the optimal way to treat health and disease when you're in space, and particularly in zero gravity. So remember, the direction of the magnetic field is important depending on what organ system you are trying to target and help energize. And make sure you watch your intensities. Consistency is the key, and that is the same intensity that the creator of the earth put in our environment for us to communicate with, for us to signal with. And that is how the creator communicates with people. So you do not want to block that out, and you definitely want to make sure your instrument, your vessel, the human body is honed to pick up these subtle fluctuations the best it can. And I'll leave you with one other area of PMF I've been studying while I've been going to school. There are a lot of esoteric scriptures out there, and there is one book of scripture, of a book that was not included in the Bible, but it talks about how Enoch studied the subtle vibrations that Jesus could pick up in the environment, and that is how he was able to perform many of the miracles. So there's far implications from spirituality to health to nature, and we really need to think about what we are doing with the magnetic field and this desire to electrify the planet. Just look at what we did by adding lights. So that's what I have to say with the earth, the magnetic field, and how you can help PMF with your diabetes or preventing it, as well as any age-related eye diseases.
Wow, that's wonderful. Great, always. Thank you so much for this training. We have to listen to the recording again. It's so good. All right.
No problem. I'm trying to make up like little tips of, this is what the research shows, this is the intensities, and these are the protocols. Because remember, your protocols are your dosage. So when you go to the doctor and he gives you a pharmaceutical and says, take 2 of these for every day for the next 3 weeks, when you're talking to medical professionals, because most people at an insurance company are doctors and nurses, well, what was the dosage? Well, sometimes I lay on it, sometimes I don't. They're not going to get that any credit. You have to be able to show what you did, how you got results, and that the results were able to show the efficacy by medical professionals. And every single person can submit stuff to their insurance on your own. A lot of times they turn it down immediately, but then they also give you a clue of what you need to do to get it approved. So things are changing. And as we know, you have to be your own advocate for your own health, because I mean, who can you really believe?
Wow, we need you. Great. All right. So thank you. Thank you so much. The next guest speaker we have, I want to introduce an exciting guest speaker, Dr. Althea Myrie, naturopathic doctor and researcher. Now she's calling from London right now, 6 p.m. your time, right? We have 10 Pacific. Anyway, I've known Dr. Myrie for the past 10 years. You know, originally I heard her in a health conference. I was very impressed by her talk. And Dr. Myrie is based in New York. She treats her patients with targeted frequency water from saliva tests with great result. So it is a treat today for everyone to learn from her. And after her talk, we can open up for Q&A for Greg and for Dr. Myrie. Feel free to ask any questions, a health-related question for Dr. Myrie. Also, PMF question as well. She's very, very knowledgeable. So Dr. Myrie, I let you further introduce yourself and let us hear from you. Thank you. Unmute yourself, Dr. Myrie.
Yes, that's
Okay, here you go.
very useful. Okay. Right. Hi there. Your morning, I gather, and my evening. Right. I'm a naturopathic doctor, but I'm also a medical researcher. So I'm always, from the beginning of time, been looking for root causes of conditions, as opposed to treating symptoms, which is the medical model, which I don't particularly like because then you do that forever. As Greg was talking about magnetic fields, I guess you have to look at the issue that I think 3 days ago, they fully switched on different magnetic field, which is electromagnetic field, the 5G. It wasn't fully enforced. Apparently it is now, and to the point where airports have said they're not flying because it's an endangerment to their safety equipment. So with that being said, I don't think people realize that when they increased from 4G to 5G, you just hear the G. What the heck does that mean? They increased our exposure to radiation by 1 million points. And that is hugely significant. So we all are trying to maintain and optimize our well-being and our health, including with the IMRS, with various variety of products. But one of the factors that will affect people, for example, I had somebody, he showed me a screen print, or what do you call it? Screenshot. So technically advanced I am, yeah. So screenshot of his REM stage, his sleeping phases. So he texted it to me while I'm talking to him because I'd given him a product. He said, oh my goodness, my sleep improved. I'm up to about so many hours on REM sleep. So I said, how do you know what your REM sleep is? Oh, he said, I'll screenshot and send it to you, because he's using one of those Apple or whatever watches people wear to monitor how they're doing. And I said to him, are you aware that this device you're wearing with this exposure on your wrist, on your blood flow, is actually impacting your sleep? So you're not going to sleep because you're wearing this thing at night. He said, are you kidding? So he took it off, and he rang me the next day and said, oh my God, my sleep was so different because he's taken this electromagnetic field off his wrist. So people are trying to use Fitbits, Apple Watches. I don't know what percentage of people actually sleep with these things, but this will impact your ability to be well, to sleep, although it says for your fitness, it is an illusion, because on one hand, it will show you what your markers are doing or your organs, but at the same time, it's going to disrupt your blood supply because you're exposing yourself to radiation unnecessarily. So you're not optimizing your IMRS by wearing that device on your hand, especially when you sleep at night, because you are impeding your ability to repair, not increasing it. So I have issues with this type of electromagnetic field exposure through Fitbits and Apple Watches. They're very nice toys, okay? But they are not practical in terms of your well-being at all. The example I will also give, I have someone in London that rang me about 9 months ago when they turned on they turned on 5G. And she says to me in the morning what happened? She said, oh, my blood pressure is 150 over 220. You can't possibly have 150 at the bottom. That is called death. So I said to her, what did the doctor say? Well, the doctor says he doesn't know what the problem is. He doesn't know why my blood pressure medication is no longer working. So in the next breath, she says to me, well, when I wake up in the morning, that's when my blood pressure is the highest. I said, madam, that is not possible or feasible, because when you're lying down, you're horizontal, you're in resting state, it's impossible for your blood pressure to be that high, the highest in the morning when you wake, unless you're sleeping with the enemy. So she says, well, I said, where is the phone? She said her cell phone is on her bed head. I said, well, you can't sleep with it on the bed head. That's why your blood pressure is so high. She said, well, I've always slept with it there. I said, not with 5G rolling through it. 1 million more points of radiation coming directly to your body. So I said, what we're going to do is take the phone out of your room. You're going to purchase my 5G band that blocks the 5G, and you send me your saliva in New York. In 1 week, by removing the phone and putting on the 5G blocker band, her blood pressure normalized. She rang me to say it was normal, which proved my hypothesis that it was the phone. Now, she said that with the blood pressure 150 at the bottom, 230 or 220 at the top, she literally felt like a knife went through her brain and she collapsed unconscious in her house. Now, if she had gotten another incident, how many more would occur before she actually died? And what would have killed her was the phone with the 5G. So this is an enemy that people cannot see, choose not to see, especially if they're male. Excuse me, Greg. We always say boys and their toys. But the problem is the convenience is killing us. It's the same with how are you going to optimize your IMRS and your products if you're eating food from a microwave. The gentleman that made the microwave had to go to the Court of Human Rights because they told him to shut his mouth or they would sue him, and tied him into a contract. But when he realized that the microwave actually causes cancer, he went to the Court of Human Rights. It took him 10 years to get permission to open his mouth that this particular form of radiation is causing cancer. The convenience is it heats it up in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever that is. But in order to heat it, it's altering the molecular structure of your food is no longer in a state that your body can recognize in order to assimilate it. So here's the body getting this garbage, this food coming and going, I don't know what this is. What am I supposed to do with it? Again, you're going to be lacking nutrients because you allow this form of radiation to come into your body for the sake of time and convenience. So again, it took 10 years after that. Most people don't want to hear. And there's tons of research to support that the microwave food can give you cancer if you have that susceptibility or you're heading down that trajectory. So I had 2 siblings. One was older and looking after her sister. And then she had a brain tumor. Now, brain tumors are highly susceptible to electromagnetic fields and radiation. There's no question. That level of exposure will make the tumor grow. So initially she started a program. She was doing absolutely fine, doing well. And then suddenly she was deteriorating. And I'm thinking, what the heck? I don't understand why it's all gone askew. So anyway, she was not doing well. She was going to pass away. I called on a particular day just to see how she was doing. And the sister screams out to the helper, oh, can you get the food out the microwave? Well, at which point I want to have a heart attack. So she had been, unfortunately, unaware and feeding her sister food from a microwave, which indeed allowed the tumor to continue to grow. So these are things people are not aware of. When I look at cancer patients as well, we look at radiation from another point. It's called something called geopathic stress, is another form of electromagnetic exposure. Where under the house, some people have what they call ley lines, or in your neighborhood, they've been recently in the last 5 years digging up roads, putting new wires down under your property or near enough to your property. But if those lines ever conduct and meet up with water, it can shoot an energy straight through your house that then triggers cancer for whoever sleeps on that side of the bed. So it's very specific. It will come up from under the kitchen or whatever area it is and will go straight through all the way to the top of the house. And so geopathic stress is another factor, unfortunately, in promoting cancer. So if I have cancer patients, I'm looking to get the home tested. Is there any radon, any kind of excessive magnetic fields? So in England, years ago, when they decided to put up cell towers, and they decided to put them near schools, they were insane. And all of a sudden, there were clusters of leukemia in all these different schools. And some of the mothers finally figured out that it was the cell towers that they had placed right next to the schools that had caused these clusters of leukemia, which is blood cancer. And they made a stink. And they had to take those cell towers away from all those children's schools because indeed that was the link. So again, it's just to have a broader understanding that you're often speaking about the good magnetic fields in the IMRS without recognition of how you may be countering or exposing yourself to other types of magnetic fields that are detrimental. So often at night, if you're using, it stops the, is it third eye? Your melatonin production goes down when you're exposed to these screens before you go to your bed. And so the radiation impedes that. So many of the young people now suffer from sleep deprivation. They don't get proper sleep. Many people, not just young, but they don't make the connection to utilizing these equipments, apples, or sleeping with these things, or sleeping with the phone next to them. Like this lady, it affected her blood pressure. So that's the thing about magnetic fields. In addition to that, because they just fully switched on the 5G now in America, we're also going to be faced with huge issues around fungal invasion. There is a symbiotic relationship between fungus and mold and radiation. 5G, 4G, I don't care which G, but radiation generally. So I had somebody that was suffering from black mold, and she was working in a university. They're normally old buildings and they have mold. And she observed, she said to me, tell me something, why is it that the computer room has the highest level of mold? I said, very good observation, because there is a relationship. If you have your radiation, it makes the fungus and mold, they have a relationship. It grows exponentially, very quickly. So again, I have cancer patients. There is somebody that wrote a book that cancer is a fungus, that there is a link to fungal load and cancer patients without a doubt. How do we know we have the fungus? Most of us have it. The question is to what degree? And so fungus and mold will make you crave sugar and crave bread. And why is that? When you have people that eat food and they feel bloated after they've had the food, that's typically because you just fed the fungus. What did you feed it with? Probably bread or sugar, or yeast, the yeast in the bread. So if any of you bake, you know that you will expand, the yeast will expand for the bread, to make the bread. Well, the same thing happens in the stomach. If you feed your yeast or the sugar, the stomach bloats because the fungus just got very happy. So most people that are suffering and struggling with their weight and the cravings are a problem. But so why am I putting my hands on that chocolate? And some of it was obviously emotional eating. The rest is the cravings are being created by the fungal load. So some people have, I need to clear the frog in my throat. It's not frog, it's fungus in the throat. People that have toenail fungus, that means if it's expressing itself externally, you have it growing systemically internally from top to bottom. By the time you see it out on the toe, it's head to toe. So you've got the fungal load that way. In men, they will have jock itch. Some people have the itchy anus. Well, mostly it's the itchy, it's the crotch. So they have the jock itch, the toenail fungus, the clearing the throat, which is the frog, which is really fungus in the throat, and the severe cravings for sugar or bread. So people beat themselves up and down. Why can't I control my cravings and do better than this? But it's a biochemical issue because that fungus needs sugar and bread or yeast to make it grow. And it will give you those cravings so it can survive and you will feed it. So you want antifungals to deal with that. But with the 5G switching on and we have the fungus internally, those cravings can probably and will increase because of the fungal load. So we have to really be cautious about, like it's Bluetooth. You have the headphones, the young people wear the Beats. So again, Bluetooth is the highest damage to the blood-brain barrier. If you're wearing those headsets to hear music, then you're damaging the blood-brain barrier. So you're going to get cognitive depression, proneness to depression. I even went and looked up a study that showed there was a link to suicide increasing. The more exposure to these electromagnetic fields, the higher your risk for suicidal. But who's making this connection? You know, we've had the whole issue of the pandemic that isolated people. So this increased mental health issues. But in many people, the other side of the coin of mental health issues is using these devices. So it's good to understand look at ways to put blockers on phones, on your computers, on your own body, just things to protect yourselves from this exposure that is growing exponentially very quickly. And of course, they're going to put out 42,000, I think, satellite dishes globally in our air sky, in the airspace. So not only will we have the 5G radiation from below, you're going to have it from above and below. So we're going to be sitting in a microwave. So again, we need more protection. So again, IMRS, as Greg is talking about balancing the body and keeping our magnetic field and our magnetic energy solid becomes more critical with these level of exposures that are already here and that will increase with time. Yeah. EMF, yes. How else are we going to, by the way, diabetics, you talked about diabetes, Greg. Genetically, I found that they are always chemically sensitive and radiation sensitive. So some of us are more susceptible to these electromagnetic fields and radiation, and diabetics are one of them, whether they're aware of it or not. Someone did an experiment, a doctor, so she put diabetics out to walk outside, which is the healthy way, and go for exercise. Blood sugars go down. She put them on an electrical in the gym on the treadmill, which is electrical. Blood sugars went up. That's because they're electrically sensitive. So their exposure has a greater impact. We've also seen that women, because of our estrogen, for some reason, you say estrogen, we are more sensitive to radiation sickness than men. So people with multiple sclerosis, they always have an issue with electricity and radiation, but the people that get MS are predominantly female, not male. So our hormones do interact to make women more sensitive to EMF exposure, the negative one, than men. So the men just scoff and say, I don't know what's wrong with you. And we women are in trouble with the radiation more so than the men. And we don't know why, it's just a fact, yeah? So that's the diabetics. Now, again, how are we going to optimize what we're doing with IMRS and what we're doing with products, good products? Certainly, I go back and I always cover the water story because water is critical. You're talking about, you've now got far infrared on the equipment, and you're going to have to move. Far infrared increases the detox of the body through this heat. So you can move your neurotoxins very well with far infrared heat. But you've now got double trouble. You've got the normal IMRS activity that is moving through frequencies, your blood, lymphatic. And on top of that now, you've got the IMRS, the far infrared, doing more detox in the body. If you move toxins and you do not have enough pathways to get those toxins out, what you have is auto-intoxication. What does that mean? My body is now self-poisoning itself, because my far infrared and the frequencies have brought all the toxins, chemicals, bacteria, fungus to the surface in order to eliminate it from the body. But it is unable to do this properly if there is not enough detox pathways. So we're talking about water. You have to have adequate amounts of water. People define this by body weight, I think, and I don't go into body weight anymore. What I have found is that people where we live now, especially I'm talking about 5G, a million more points. The environment is becoming hostile. So we have to do more to help ourselves. People need 3 quarts of water per day in order to flush, get the blood moving properly, and do what we need to do. Gamora, can you ask what's the name if she's got another? Excuse me, 1 second. Another thing that she can bring with her, please.
I don't think so. But
Can you
I'll
just
ask.
ask her, please?
She
Thank
might
you.
not be home. Sounds like she's out.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, sorry about that. And so water becomes the absolute key because our detox pathways is your liver and kidneys have to take all the rubbish out. If you're already on medications every day, which most Americans are taking some form of drug, prescribed medication, that in itself is toxic load. It has to go through kidneys and liver. So we're already starting with, I need to detox the drugs. My blood pressure medication I just took this morning needs to get out my liver and kidneys. Have I got enough water? Who knows? Then we're going to the IMRS, who's going to start now dealing with a whole slew of other toxins, which could be chemical, could be bacterial, could be viral. But if there is not enough water to move those toxins out, all they will do is recirculate in your body, and then you say you're not feeling well. Why is I'm not getting my results? You have to have adequate amounts of water. I explain to people, I go to conferences for these products and machines, and they're guzzling down their lovely cups of coffee, which is typical, and the sodas, which is typical. But these are counterproductive to well-being for most of us to understand this. People say to me, well, I'm having fluids, so I'm okay. I'm like, no. The only thing your body recognizes in order to help us to eliminate toxins is water with nothing in it, including lemon. We have the myth that if we put lemon in the water, it makes us alkaline. That is not actually true. If you put it in the glass, which has no combustion, no body temperature, just put the lemon in a glass on its own in the water, it will make it alkaline. When it enters the human body, it does not make it alkaline. In order for you to become alkaline from drinking lemon water, you'd have to already be in an alkaline state, 7.3, which most people are not. One of my people I know in Texas was at an osteopath's office, which is really horrific. And he said that he had just been using a machine, and like 40 people, they asked them to check their pH. What level am I of acidity or alkaline? Alkaline means I'm in good health. Acidity means I'm not in good health. 7.3 is ideal pH that we should be all. He said they measured people, they were 4 pH, and then one of them was getting excited, he was 4.5. This is horrendous for an American diet. 4.5 and 5 is what I look for in my cancer patients. When they got to him, he was 7. They were like shocked. He was the only one that was 7. He said, they said, what's your secret then? He said, well, I use this machine and it makes me alkaline. So again, the concept of the pH and acidity is really another marker of how well are you doing with your health. The acid forming foods is your sugar, your bread, the things we know we're not supposed to be eating, the chocolates, the cakes, and the sodas. But again, with caffeine in the sodas and your coffee that we drink so much, and in England, tea, 1 cup of coffee removes 4 glasses of water from your body. A cup of tea will take away 3 glasses of water. At what point are you going to put the water back that you've just removed from your body? We know that caffeine is a diuretic. And the other thing that they never taught us in school, that your plasma, your blood, is 80% or thereabouts water. So you might, if it's 80% water is your blood, your plasma, you might as well call blood water. So when you take that caffeine before you get on your machine or whatever people are doing, you are actually removing water from your blood. And this is a problem. So you're not optimizing the IMRS or anything you're taking when you're continually having caffeine. So sometimes I will have a cancer patient and I always don't want them in I say, okay, what is it you need once a week to keep you happy? I don't care if it's a glass of wine, it's a cup of coffee, and they have something to look forward to. But the point is, we can't every day. Greg talks about consistency always with the IMRS, with the equipment. If you're consistently drinking your caffeine instead of glasses of water, are you impeding your results? You have to be. But it's just what we habitually are used to doing, and we don't think about these things. So I had somebody on the plane telling me that she never drinks water. I watched her drink the soda. She was sitting next to the wrong doctor. Anyway, you know my nickname is Dr. Killjoy. So she tells me that she doesn't drink any water, but she has a blood clotting disease. Now that's real entertainment to me. So I explained to her that you're drinking sodas, you're removing all the water out of your blood, and then you're telling me your blood is too thick when a natural blood thinner is water. Anyway, she said to me, no one's ever broken it down to me in this way. She could not get hold of the staff on that plane to bring her water for the first time ever, because she didn't understand the implications of why the blood was so thick was being exacerbated by her caffeine consumption, because the doctors are not telling you because they're doing exactly the same thing. So again, we optimize by getting 3 quarts of water. Once you dip a tea bag in that water, you've altered the molecular structure. You're no longer drinking water. So the lemon in the water is great first thing in the morning when you wake up because it detoxifies the liver. But for the rest of the day, it has to be plain water. People have to acquire the taste for water. The reason we don't like water, we've been drinking juices and all these flavored things all these years, including myself. And I say to people, when my husband and I started to fight over a box of juice and then we buy 1 quart each, and I'm thinking, well, there's no nutritional value in this juice. Why are we fighting over juice? I need to get rid of it. And I had to force myself to stop drinking juice and drink water instead. But the temptation is to have the juice. Now, I always lay the challenge to any of you on this call, and I have done so with my clients who thought I was a lunatic. And I said to them, if you force and drink that 3 quarts of water for 6 weeks, you will love water at the end of 6 weeks. And they all said to me afterwards, I thought you were crazy. There's no way I'm going to like water. How does that happen? Because we have a thirst signal for water that's at the base of the brain. That's where it's been pushed with all the sugar and the sodas. It's gone to the bottom of the brain. When you drink 3 quarts of water every day for 6 weeks, that thirst signal starts coming to the top of the brain. And when it gets here, you like water. And it's as simple as that. But it's not an easy process, but it works. And then you have no problem drinking water. You've just got to bring the thirst signal for water back to the top of the brain. The other thing people mustn't do is people eat their thirst. What does that mean? The thirst signal and the hunger signal are the same. So they always encourage people that half an hour before eating to drink, a couple glasses of water, because then you actually hydrate and you will only eat your hunger. You will not be eating your thirst, if that makes sense. Yeah. So the water is key, but it must be plain water with nothing else in it. And the illusion around the lemon, you can go and get a pH testing strip and test yourself. And you'll find that you're not alkaline, you're actually more acidic with the lemon in the water because you're not 7.3 pH to begin with. How are we for time? I don't know.
That's wonderful. I know I talked with you. You can stay a little longer for us, and I'm sure people will ask questions. And I'm not sure about Greg's schedule. I know we
listen to her all day.
Who? Okay, so
that's not a good thing.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So a friend of mine
She took the organic blackstrap molasses and Bob's Red Mill baking soda. She took that at night. She would measure her urine before at night and measure the urine 3 days in the morning at night, in the morning. And the urine, drastic change. Yeah, she went from highly acidic to alkaline. I think it was like 7.2 or something like that on the strip. So it really alkalized her. She did that for a couple of days. She had good success with it. I tried it. I had no success with it. Noticed very little change. So, you know, blackstrap molasses is sugar. Can you comment why this sometimes works, why this doesn't always work?
Right. It depends. We've used that blackstrap molasses with the baking soda because in cancer patients, Simoncini, he said cancer is a fungus. But what happens, the cancer cell will open up for the sugar, and right behind it comes the baking soda to kill it. So I have used it in that way. So it's about the combination that creates the change. It's the baking soda really that then allows the alkalinity to occur. Now, in your case where it may not, or somebody where it didn't change, it depends on your internal terrain. Maybe your fungal load is so high that when you put in the sweetener, it just made it higher. There are so many cofactors involved as to why it will work on one person or not on another. I don't know your existing fungal load, yeah?
I will make the comment. I do not drink sodas. I have not drank sodas in a long time. I strive to eat a very healthy, very liquid vitamin diet, all sorts of goodies, avoid the bad stuff. I'm not perfect, but yeah, it was quite strange.
But he's perfect. Yeah, JC is very good.
So, and your pH is normally what?
Urine, well, it depends on what time of day I measure it and other factors, but it's somewhere in the 6.8 range, you know, on average.
You're not the worst. It just won't switch into the 7.3, is what you're saying.
Correct.
And other stressful factors could be if you heavily, you know, if you work with a computer all day, these are other factors because it increases oxidative stress and it's a stressor on the body. So the question is, what other stresses is your body exposed to that are not to do with food? You see, people don't look at environmental. Sometimes our home has got a lot of mold, but you don't see it or smell it. You've got mold spores that are coming through the vents. There's all these environmental factors that we don't look at, yeah?
I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, unmute yourself for questions for Dr. Myrie or Greg.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Is it Mary Beth?
It's Mary Beth.
Yes.
Okay, some of this is very new to me, and I do have one question. You referred to toenail fungus, having fungus from head to toe, and I thought you said you need antifungals. Are you recommending like a pharmaceutical course of internal antifungals?
No, you've got natural antifungals. There are many natural antifungals out there.
Thank you.
Not the drug version, no.
Thank you.
No problem.
I have a question. This is Crystal.
Crystal, yeah.
Actually, I have a few, but I'll just limit it. So Dr. Myrie, my sister has stage 4 cancer. It's a carcinomas, squamous cell carcinomas in the jaw. I'm interested in exploring the modality of treatment with a frequency water. How do I go about and doing that?
Right, you would just connect with Terry on that because you'd organize to get the testing and see what the cells are, which exact cells are driving that particular cancer and how does it come about. Because if you know what cells are driving it, you can go to the root, yeah? But you would need to liaise with Terry about how you organize that for your sister if you're going to go down that road.
Okay, and kind of a follow-on question for both you and Greg. We are seeing, my sister is seeing an integrative doctor. He's so far so good, But interestingly, he does have an IMRS. He is very, is a proponent of that, of course, but he's not recommending for my sister yet. And part of it, I don't understand the whole medical reason, but my gathering is that her system at this point is not, I guess, aligned or strong enough to be able to use it yet. It doesn't mean that she'll never will be able to use it. What are your thoughts?
We see different things. In the beginning, when Terry was using this equipment, and I would get calls about why some people were having certain impact from using the equipment. And one of the things was that I realized is that if they were elderly, their mitochondria, you say mitochondria, their mitochondria, because of age, are not functioning ideally. It's at a lower level of mitochondrial function. Now, that is also true of cancer patients. They have low mitochondria. So sometimes you're trying to use, whether IMRS or any other frequency machines, trying to get the body to utilize resources that it doesn't have. Yeah?
Okay.
But in saying that, the owner of the inventor used his for cancer. And so we're back to individuals. Yeah, nothing is a blanket. You have to look at each individual. Where's their state of nutrient levels? Where's their state of their mitochondria? Have they got enough minerals to support? So if I look at that, I look very detailed about what's missing, what's needed, what's going to be enough electrolytes, enough key base minerals. What are the missing components I need to put in place to enable this person's body to use the machine? Yes?
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, like Dr. Myrie, you always said that you have to have raw material to work on. Yes.
Exactly.
Information I had read when you're dealing with PMF and cancer is most of the research shows that cancer does not respond to PMF. And so what you're really working on is the healthy cells. And that was from research done at the University of Kentucky and University of Pittsburgh, and particularly breast cancer. So they had found that the women who were recovering from breast cancer who integrated melanonin, and PMF, the PMF didn't do anything with the cancer, but what it did was it helped the healthy cells remain strong. Now, the second piece of research I've read dealing with cancer was asbestos poisoning, and that cancer hijacks a cell, and it basically is just like a dropped call. So when you're on your cell phone, you're like, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? So the cancer, and this was asbestos, particularly from this research, short circuits the cell membrane. And when it short circuits the cell membrane, the cell begins to have damped electromagnetic communications. And that's just like a dropped call. So the cell loses communications with the body, basically, the brain, let's just say. So your so those cells are able to take over. The PMF helps mitigate damped electromagnetic signaling. So it gives the cell an added boost of energy in order to not diminish. But what Dr. Myrie said is 100%, you need to always think of this first. It's individualized. So yes, this was with asbestos cancer patients, and yes, this is with breast cancer patients, but it's all individualized. But these were the research findings because that's exactly what they were looking for. Does PMF do anything with cancer, and can we use it as a substitute for morphine, for opiates? And it did nothing with the cancer. And that's because cancer operates at very low frequencies. And so the frequencies don't interact. But the resonance, what does interact, the coupling, are the healthy cells. So you're strengthening what is healthy in the body in order to fight the diseased aspect of it. But again, it's all individualized. And that's one of the hugest areas of PMF. It's hard to duplicate results. because we're dealing with energy. We're dealing with nutrition, because if you, like Dr. Myrie said, if you don't have the things inside the body, what's it going to connect with? What's it going to stimulate? So it's very difficult to duplicate long-term studies because people are so variable, because we're dealing with energy. It's like directing water when you spill it on the kitchen floor. It goes everywhere. And that's exactly what happens. It's very hard to duplicate it due to the ions in the body and all the other different parameters that make us all individual.
Question here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Who has the next
Hello?
question?
Terry, this is Bill.
Hey, Dr. Bill.
Sir, I have a question. The first one here is for Dr. Myrie for sure. Is you were talking about water. Is it good to use just tap water, filtered water, distilled water? And then I know you don't like the distilled water, but if we add some sort of electrolytes to that to get it more usable, or what do you suggest on that? And then my second question is about my daughter has a insulin pump. She's been told to not use the PEMF, so it interferes with the pump, and it's definitely helping her blood sugars control, but she's quite I would say a severe type 1 diabetic.
Hello?
Hello?
The only
Can you
thing
hear
I've ever read about the insulin pump, and again, it's a contraindication, but I know Dr. Bill, so he understands this is just talking, it's not any medical advice, is that some people will then just put the pad on their hands, or they'll put the pad on the feet, so they're not laying on the whole body mat. But again, that was an individual who decided that mitigating the diabetes needed to happen because they were at a dire crossroads. And so it wouldn't interfere with any electrical implants within the body. They had put it on a low intensity on the feet. And when you look at the research that they used to determine PMF and pacemakers, anything less than 50% intensity did not even signal anything within the body. So I can send you that information if you like, Dr. Bill, and you can make your own conclusion from it, since it is your daughter and you can decide as a family. But there is a lot of research that shows you can mitigate that if PMF is a treatment protocol that you feel is benefiting for that circumstance.
Okay. Yes, I
Question,
appreciate that. Thank you.
Question to add to that. So, PFOAs, I guess it is, are parts per billion. They're in everything. It's hard to get out. It's even in, reverse osmosis water that you buy for 30 cents or whatever is, it gets out most of the fluoride. It gets out most everything that's kind of less than desirable. But number one, there is the concern about PFOAs. And then number two, could you take that pad on the feet and could you actually warm up the feet with a far infrared heat lamp to maybe 100, 102 degrees Fahrenheit, with a far infrared lamp, not to affect the heat pads, of course, just to affect, maybe the upper thighs or legs and get the body temperature up and get an enhanced effect. Number three, could you actually mix, like Dr. Shiva talks about, could you mix curcumin with resveratrol that has a very synergistic effect and actually run the PMF to multiply, get a more synergistic effect with the PMF? Has any studies been done in any of those areas?
I have not come across in any of those specific areas. A lot of times they use the PMF with the pharmaceuticals simply, or any supplements, simply because it opens the cell membranes, not opens up the cell membranes, but it optimizes the functioning of the cell membranes in order to facilitate the absorption and the utilization. But I have not seen anything specific with what you had described.
Dr. Myrie she got dropped off. She's now back on. Okay. All right.
I see several people have asked for information on the color therapy and whether the spot treatment can be used to treat the ears, the eyes through the ears. Can you use the spot treatment? Like I used to use it.
Sure, yes. I had just grabbed it. You can use the spot. The only thing to keep in mind with the spot is because of the design of the coil construction, it's a much higher intensity at 10%, because the spot utilizes, I believe it goes up to like 120, 150 microtesla, where the pads are generally kept less than 70. So even at sensitive at 10, you're going to get a more pinpoint and a stronger magnetic field. That could be helpful. The reason why I chose the pad is due to the fact it has less intensity and a larger area than the spot.
Okay.
But you adjust. I just wanted to put that caveat in there, is make sure you definitely start on sensitive or 10, because even after using it 10 years, after I had read that research and I started to put the pad on my side, I felt it even more. I don't know if it's because there was less, going through the side, you have less, ribs or, but I could feel it even more, particularly because I could feel it on my hip. I could feel increased circulation. So before I would always set it on top, but when I had set it on the side, I could feel the increased circulation in my hip. And I definitely could feel it within the eyes. So I always just stood with the pad. And when I lay down, I just kind of like bend it and I do like 4 to 6 minutes. And then I just do this. So that's how I do, but it's all based on, what you find that works best for you.
Okay, Janet, maybe let them, the people ask question right on the webinar first, before we go on the chat, we have room. So who has the next question for Dr. Myrie or Gray?
Mary.
Mary, go ahead.
Yeah.
You're in London.
Yeah. Hi. How will I, to get, to Dr.
Dr. Myrie.
The contact, because I just need to
contact me. Yeah, contact me for Mary. Yeah, you and I know each other well. Okay, that's good.
So because I do have a lot of, but recently I just become very sensitive to my mat. And I get this tingling from below my knee down, and I don't know what that is all about. So
that is good. Most of the time, someone had once told me, PMF will signal to you where change is occurring, because you'll feel it. And like I was telling you about my hip, I could feel the induced circulation, and it feels like a warmth and a tingling. And what that is telling me, if it's similar to what I'm experiencing, is that it's increasing the circulation, and what you're feeling, that warmth and that tingling, is actually blood, energy going through tissues that were once deprived.
All right.
So you are wakening up areas of the body, so to say, by utilizing the PMF.
I get worried, because I was like, oh gosh, I don't know what's going on.
It's good. When you feel that, think of that's the blood flowing. So that means you are inducing circulation into the lower half of your body where it may have been diminished prior.
Okay.
Very good. Who has the next question?
I have a question for Greg.
Who is it?
Using the spot. Now I've been using it on my left foot. I think I have a plantar thwart. I have problems with my left foot and tissue damage on the top. So I've been using the spot for 4 to 6 minutes. Now, do I also need to balance it by using it on the other side with the other foot?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I've read research and symmetry. If you're going to energize one side of the body, you should also do the other. So if you like my one hip, which, you know, and I know exactly what happens is I'm not stretching or don't do the Pilates, the hip blocks nerves and stuff. So when I'm stretched and limber, the flow goes. But that is the, the same philosophy in a sense. And that's why I do the other hip. So if you're going to strengthen, it's like if you lifted weights, but you only lifted the right arm. Eventually your muscle would grow here, but it wouldn't grow here. So just for symmetry, you would always want to do both. Okay. Now I have one of those plantar on one of my feet as well. And that was the reason why I got into Pilates, because it strengthened my arches. But what I do is I take the pad and I stand on the pad. And that will help strengthen the bones in the feet, since there's so many different little bones and joints. So if you're sitting down and you're watching TV, say, or you're on the computer or something, I just put the pad on the floor, take my shoes off, and then I put my feet on top of the pad.
Oh, okay. And then how long?
That's how I treat my feet and whatnot. There's also a Mayo Clinic study, and they found that their protocol for treating uncontrollable hypertension is to do a PMF pad twice a day on the bottom of the feet, put it in your lap, and put your hands on top of it. The Mayo Clinic is delivering the PMF through the bottom of the feet and the palms of the hand. And their findings showed the most significant results were those with the worst hypertension. So if you have people or know people who could benefit, what they're finding is the most significant results are the people who are in the worst state. But the Mayo Clinic, even in the research, showed that they were amazed by the results. Finally, these institutions are catching up, but I can tell you pretty sure there's going to be protocols and whatnot coming from the Mayo Clinic, the Cleveland Clinic, because they're finding so many evidence-based studies and results, and people can treat themselves at home, and it's not a pharmaceutical.
Okay, well, thank you. Now, I just have one other question for you. I've been being treated with Vyzulta, which are eye drops to lower my eye pressure. And I'd actually like to get off the drops. Now, when you mentioned with the pad, that's a large pad and you just tilt it?
Yeah, what unit do you have?
I have the IMRS, the Prime with a hybrid.
Okay, perfect. So you can use either the pad or the spot, and that's exactly what the PMF is doing. It is releasing that pressure because it is helping the vessels, I believe it's dilate, so they open it up so you don't have that pressure on the eyes, because that's what was causing the vision, the blurry vision, was that pressure. So the PMF actually, and I'll look for that study, I can send it to Terry, releases the pressure. And that's why when you put it here, it's almost doing the same thing as those drops.
Okay. So now with the pad, can do I lay down on it?
You can lay on it, because the other good thing is that you can even do it with a whole body mat in a sense, because if you sit on your side on the whole body mat, like lay on your side, you're going to be doing side to side direction of the magnetic field, which has shown to be great for circulation, for the bladder, for the kidneys. So, you can either do a pad, or, thank you for bringing up this great suggestion, just lay sideways on your whole body mat. You can, then I would have been able to treat my hips and my eyes at the same time. So thank you.
Hi, Greg.
Yeah.
Oh, Adriana, yeah.
Yes, good morning. This is a question regarding about the bones. I understand, and you have said it before, it helps regenerate even the bones. What about the disc between the bones and like the protocol also for strengthening the knees in this case, either with the whole path, like or the small path, I mean, the mat or the path, how could you?
For strengthening the knees, the only way you can strengthen anything in the body is you definitely have to do exercise. PMF is not necessarily going to strengthen anything. I mean, as far as the knees and whatnot, you have to have some type of resistance-based, to have some type of resistance on the pressure on the bones. I know about the bones through osteoporosis and the regeneration. Now, I'm not up to date on how all the spine, but you can strengthen the bone. They have the spine stimulators. And I always tell people when you're talking to a doctor about your home PMF unit, they've heard of spine stimulators. That's the same thing. And so after you have back surgery, the doctor can prescribe to you a spine stimulator. And so that will help the healing process. So I'm assuming that would work as well. But, even just to strengthen it, when you're sitting down watching TV or on the computer, just put the pad on top of your knees for maybe 12 minutes and then put it underneath your legs. And that will help, stimulate the bone and stimulate in that area. Or if you have a spot, which would even be better because it would have the Helmholtz effect of the magnetic direction, just put the spot on one knee and the other knee and make it easy for yourself. Do it while you're watching TV. That's what I always say. You should keep your PMF unit when you know you're going to be sitting down, because then you just grab it and you just watch TV or listen to a podcast and you just move it around while you're doing something.
Sure.
So
I'm sorry, and
PMF go together like this with me, and that's when I treat myself.
Very good. The intensity and the time, any thoughts on that?
When you're treating the bone, I would always do above 50%.
Above
50%. Okay. Generally, the 100% intensity, anything below 100% is generally utilizing resonance. Anything over 50% based on the intensity of the magnetic field is utilizing induction in resonance. So when you're dealing with a bone or a knee, which is a very dense part of the body, or a hip, I always do above 50.
Okay.
I have
Great.
a question.
Thank you.
I have a question. Yeah, Francis, go ahead.
Yes, I'm hearing a lot of low intensity, sensitive.
Yes.
Anyway, so I'm wanting to know, should I still be doing 12 at 25 first on the mat and then go to low intensity later on?
I would say if you've been already utilizing it and your body has become acclimated, then you can still work with the intensities that you're utilizing. The reason why I had said sensitive and 10 is because I was really focusing on utilizing the field up at the head and directing it through the ear. And that for sure, always low. So that's why I was, making sure people got that point, low intensity, especially up by the head.
Got it. Good. And so I've been doing the 12 at 25 in the morning time. And then when I have time, I'll just sit on the mat for half an hour on sensitive.
Perfect. Oh, that's very good, because you're getting all of those subtle resonant fields.
Okay.
And it is training your autonomic nervous system to pick up the subtle vibrations in the environment, just like the birds and the fish and with the Earth's magnetic field. And that's also why women are more sensitive than men to the magnetic field, because they are better at sensing those subtle fluctuations in the environment, so to say. Some believe because it's the maternal instinct and whatnot, that you're able to sense your offspring more, even by distance. So people can tell when their children are in trouble, even not even knowing. So women have an innate ability to utilize the magnetic field more, I would say, than men. Men will have to train a lot more to weaken the thought processes that we were told in order to really surrender to the field and be able to absorb the frequencies. But that's what I do sometimes when I'm stressed out or just want to think about something. I just put it on for 30 minutes and I put it on a low intensity and I just sit there in that resonant field and just let my body become accustomed to picking up the subtle vibrations in the environment.
Okay, thank
Because
you.
that will also keep you out of trouble, because you'll be able to feel a subtle vibration and know to run. And in this environment, in this day and age, with everything going on, having a cue to get you and your family out of trouble is going to be important.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Quick question, JC. So number one, you know, we all should be outside on our mats right now, getting sunshine on the front and back of our bodies as much as possible. And I assume vitamin D drastically helps, you know, bone situation. But what I wanted to ask was two-part question here. Taking bilberry extract with Hawaiian axanthin, and then getting that circulating through the blood. Any comments on that for the eyes? And number two, hair loss. A lot of people I know that have received the vaccine and had horrible reactions from the vaccine, or they got COVID and, you know, they had COVID for a week or so or whatever. 2 to 3 months later, they're losing hair like crazy. Have you had any good luck with how the device can help with hair loss?
Well, any type of supplements, we have the expert, the doctor. So that is, you know, she's the expert in that area. So I will let her handle the, you know, that supplement and the extract and whatnot. The only thing I've ever read about PMF and hair loss is that, again, if you put it near the top of your head, it will help circulation. So it's kind of like those red light cones. But I know the vaccine could cause that because it has to weaken your immune system. That's why people who got vaccinated get COVID, because it weakens your immune system.
Mm-hmm.
So you would want to do something that builds your immune system back up.
Well, part of the problem as well is thyroid controls hair falling out. And we're not entirely sure. I have a client recently, she's most distressed the amount of hair she's losing. And this is related to vaccine or COVID and vaccine. And so it's something we're working on at the moment to establish what's the primary driver, because she is actually on thyroid medication. So thyroid is under attack somehow, I believe, through these mechanisms, whether it's the COVID spike or the vaccine spike. And it all depends on your genetics. The mRNA is a messenger to talk to your DNA. And what we're finding with people that have had these contraindications with these shots or with the COVID is that it depends on your genetics, because that's what it's actually disrupting. So this woman has a family history of problems with their thyroid. So we're not entirely sure if it's that genetic profile that made her more susceptible to losing the hair. So we're testing her, and we'll be able to see if we can supply a formula, because she went online and told me yesterday that there were a ton of people she found with the same particular problem with losing the hair. I didn't realize it was that extensive. So we're looking at that now, but clearly things that support thyroid is L-tyrosine, selenium, and again, not eating bread. The bread and gluten attacks the thyroid. Anybody with thyroiditis, any of the thyroid issues, is always a link to the thyroid under attack by gluten.
Including sprouted bread with the organic sprouted bread?
I just don't do bread at all because depends which one. There's one you call, what is it called? The sprouted bread. When I looked at it, it was not meeting my conditions either. But the other bigger problem with the bread is they added bromide which is the same as fluoride. It's an IDE, so it's a halogen, which means it disrupts iodine in your thyroid. So the bromide they started to add instead of iodine in the flour is a disruptor to the thyroid because it's a halogen. So it's 2 counts for the bread. So the one you're talking about probably doesn't have bromide in it. But every other bread, most of them, unless they're organic, have bromide, which will shut down your thyroid. And I also have people who are losing their hair that's linked to the 5G exposure. I believe there is a synergistic component to what is happening to people. They've just fully turned on the 5G fully in America. We're going to see even more problems. I've had people with skin issues suddenly flaring up, tinnitus coming about, thyroid issues, but this has been linked to 5G. So how do you separate them all out? Yes, if you see what I'm saying. But certainly you look at the slowing the attack down on the thyroid by changing your dietary. And secondly, reducing radiation exposure to the thyroid. And thirdly, looking at what nutrients support thyroid function. So there are some very good natural thyroid formulas, but you want to get kelp for the iodine to feed the thyroid. That's essential. But in kelp, in the tablet kelp form, at least the body takes what it needs. If I take straight iodine, you call it iodine, then I have a chance of poisoning myself. So I'm very careful with iodine. So I prefer to give people kelp tablets where the body will extract what it needs and it can never overdose. So the kelp would be essential, selenium, and the L-tyrosine. Those are 3 key things for thyroid to support the thyroid. But ultimately, they may have to get tested to see, in their case, what part of their genetics are being affected by the COVID or by the spike, by the vaccine.
Also like to say, I think the genetics is huge, and don't underestimate the body. They have had 2 individuals recently who've healed themselves from HIV. One of them, I believe, was in Argentina. It was a girl, basically, who got it at a younger point in her life. And she didn't have any money. She didn't have any health care. So she just said, what am I going to do? So she just stopped thinking about the diagnosis and went on with her life. Later on, it found out that miraculously, they could not detect HIV in her anymore. And I believe they studied like 500 something points of her blood looking for this, see if it got in any of her cells, and it was not. Then they found another individual who healed themselves of HIV. So we have to stop relying on man-made solutions to things that are already, we already have solutions within our environment. But one of the reasons why these don't work anymore is like what Dr. Myrie said, we've created a hostile environment for us to live in. And now every day is a battle figuring out, was it the medication? Was it the 5G? Is it all the plastics in the environment? Is the air pollution? You don't know. So like Dr. Myrie said, you gotta go to the root cause in order to, work backwards and correct the solution. But a lot of people have the ability to heal themselves and maintain good health in the face of adversity. And those are the people I think we should be studying to figure out, why are they able to do that? Yes.
Can I add something not in the medical field, but in the therapeutic field? As a licensed cosmetology, I've been working over more than 20 years doing hair, and also phlebotomist. So I find people a lot with that, losing hair in the normal basis. And one of the protocols that I have implemented is the main factors, how the body runs. Since the skin is organ of elimination, we have toxins in it. So one of the things people like the women that I was helping and the men, they love their long hair or they want to keep their hair. So the first mechanism they see it is when they wash their hair and it falls off. So it's a false illusion not washing their hair. So since, again, the skin holds that, throws that toxin, one of the best ideas will be just to wash your hair as it comes dirty, so that way it doesn't reabsorb that. So like what they're talking about now, the COVID and everything, all those elements is in our body, in and out. So might as well flush it out in the most simplest way, that cleaning. And then another one would be nourishing. So elimination, cleansing, nourishing, protecting. And the same way with the PMF, the circulation is very important to let the body absorb all the nutrients. It's like having a dinner, but you're sleeping, the good supper, you cannot eat it. So help the body be awakened to receive the nutrients through, and the circulation, that's what it does. As it has all the ingredients, the minerals, the hormones, everything in there. So it's reducing that inflammation as well. So with natural supplements too, like they talk about the turmeric or something like that, in the most nonchalant way, yet following the protocols that they involve all those mechanisms, that metabolism of the health itself, the cleansing, protection, elimination, nourishing, and boosting the energy. So there are many factors that help for that. So that's what I wanted to say.
Excellent.
Thank you for sharing, Adrian.
By the way, to add a quick comment, a African taxi driver told me a couple of years ago, I asked him how how his country is dealing with AIDS, and he says, "We no longer have it in our country." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, we learned if you drink camel's milk for every day for a month, I think it was twice a day, for a month, AIDS completely goes away." Camel's milk. And he was serious. He was 100% serious. There was another question about, oh shoot, it'll come back to me. So finish. I'll move on to the next question. I'll get out.
Grace has a question. Grace, you want to go ahead? Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I have a question. When I use the mat or pad, but sometimes I get the feet has like the electric shock, and the muscle is jumping. Does it mean that I'm using it too much?
No, I would say that means you need to drink more water, or maybe some other, if the muscle is jumping, it always, I was always said that was a hydration issue. Maybe Dr. Myrie has another.
It can be, yeah, that's one of the issues. It could be dehydration. It can also be electrolytes, because you're trying to stimulate the synapses, the muscles. So sometimes I find it's a nutrient deficit. So magnesium, potassium in particular, you'd be looking at seeing whether your potassium was needed or magnesium. And if it went away with either one of those, then it meant it was a deficit.
And I mean, it makes sense. Magnesium, that's what you would take if you're working out, you get cramps. It generally means you have a magnesium deficiency.
Yeah.
Thank you. And my next question is about the frequency water. How do I make it, or how do I get it?
No, you don't make it. It's already made. No, typically you would do a saliva test with your medical history, and that's sent in through to our lab. From that, they are able to then diagnose everything. Like you mentioned, Adriana, bone building. What I look at when I hear bone building is that sometimes when we're testing, we see there is actually an inherited condition where you don't have the ability to hold your calcium in your bone, or the phosphorus is imbalanced, or some people I have where the bone does not take in any minerals. You may take them, it has no ability to absorb them. So sometimes I say to people to actually test to see if there is an underlying inherited condition that does not allow you to build your bones. And if there is, then you correct it. And if there isn't, you look at bone building products, which there are many. Yeah, but if there's an absorption at the root, nothing's ever going to fix it.
Okay. Okay.
So you get to the root cause. Once you have the saliva test, it does a diagnosis. And then they have the, if they've been able to identify the problem, they then have the frequency water that's made up to correct your specific issue.
I understand. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. So Janet, you have some key questions? If they don't, they can ask real quickly because we're gonna coming to the close now. Janet?
Okay. There are several people who want to know about if there's a list of protocol for where to place the PEMF to achieve different aspects of healing. Greg, can you?
Can you repeat the question? I had to run to the bathroom real quick.
That's okay. I had to do that twice. Is there a list of protocol of where to place the PEMF to achieve certain aspects of healing?
I don't think there's any, I figured all this out by, having an issue myself and then looking through Google Scholar and all the clinical and then looking to see the mechanism of action, what they're, so that's how I pulled all of these together. At this time, I don't know if anyone has done that due to the fact, like we were talking about, is there, you have to play around with it. 100 may work for me on 12 minutes, but it doesn't mean that protocol will work with everybody who is trying to do the same thing. So I think there's nothing yet put together, but I think, you could do it with ranges and stuff. So I would just, at this point, it's really all in an individualized basis. It's just to ask questions, find out what people have done, if they've read anything. This last month, I just came across the information about directing in the side. I've also come across that if you want to treat the legs, when you're laying on the mat, you should actually have your legs bent. So your feet should be flat on the whole body mat, and then your leg goes up. So you have your knee bent. You should be flat. So there's all these types of tips, and a lot of them are now coming out due to the Mayo Clinic research, the Cleveland Clinic, and all these other institutions, the space station, looking into all of this. And that's where I'm extracting all this information right now. But there's not any centralized location where, it's all formulated for people.
Okay. And someone asked what what water is better? And can they just put a pinch of baking soda in water to raise its pH to make it alkaline above 7?
No, because you're still changing the molecular structure of the water. It has to be plain water. To change the molecular, well, water is a difficult one. Obviously, some people use alkaline water or alkaline water machines, depending on what's going on with them. But typically, if we're buying bottled water, we buy the spring water. I buy it in a glass bottle because the plastics are being absorbed into your body. So Spring Valley water is typically very well done as a glass bottle, comes in a green glass bottle. The fizzy, we don't do the fizzy water because I don't know what on earth they make it fizzy with, but you've altered the molecular structure. It's not water. The body cannot utilize it to help detox or to heal. And again, I have water I have water machines that I've invested in to have clean water. So it's all about budgets. I'd also found some very good jugs that clear radon and give you really clean water, and for under $100. So there are different options about how you get clean water, but typically continuously using the plastic, it leaches into the water molecules are then too large and have plastic in them. So you don't have the proper hydration.
I remember when water was free and clean.
Yeah, not anymore.
I know. I mean, if my dad would have heard a good buy is water under $100, he would probably fall over. He's like $100 for water.
But it's important to invest in that.
It is, and it's getting very expensive to get clean water, especially in a bottle. It's even hard to find.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, and people are asking, how do we get in touch with a good doctor? We do that through Terry?
Yes,
Terry,
yes.
madam.
Contact
Yes.
me. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's 3 o'clock here on the East Coast.
Yes.
I'm gonna jump off real quick, but I appreciate Terry for putting this together, and I enjoyed sharing information and talking with everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Greg.
so much, Gray. Thank you, Dr.
Thank-
Myrie, spending
Thank
the
you,
time
Dr. Myrie.
from London and everybody on the call. So we're going to have a nice Saturday, okay?
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you, Greg. Thank you,
Thank you.
Dr. Myrie. Love
Greg.
you all.
Thank
God
Thank you.
bless you.
Hey,
Thanks,
Pamela.
Dr. Myrie.
Hi, everyone.
You're welcome,
Hi, Dr. Bill.
Kathleen.
Hi,
Dr. Bill, I'll speak to you soon.
sounds good. Love to visit with you all the time. Take care.